Hello and welcome back to Pong in Unreal Engine 4. How to make it. We're going to continue on where we were last time. We just basically had a scene with paddle working and some other things. So we hit play, see we can move this up and down, but that's just about it. So getting there, but not quite a game yet. Next thing we're going to work on is we're going to make the functionality for the ball. But before we make the functionality for the ball, we need to have some boundaries on the map so at least we'll be able to test it. So remember those boundaries we made earlier on, the static meshes? We're now going to make a blueprint out of them. So if you go to the static meshes, you go to the SM boundary, you can right click on it, and then go to asset actions and create a blueprint using this. We're going to call this blueprint horizontal boundary. Looks good to me. Got our little boundary here. One thing we got to remember is on this actual static mesh, I don't believe we've enabled collision. So if we go back to, let me just go back to where we were. We had our static mesh. Let's go back to the main scene. Yeah, SM boundary. Double click on that. This is the actual static mesh. We just created that blueprint, BP horizontal boundary. Double click on that guy, right? Our static mesh here, if we double click on that inside the blueprint editor, you see collision, no collision on this object. We're going to need some collision. So go up to collision, add a box, simplify collision, and hit save. Now whenever we use it, we'll have collision. I'm going to exit out all these extra tabs we have at the top. You can exit out all those for now. Looks good to me. And hit save, Control S. Open up the horizontal boundary again. So now we just got our basic boundary here. What does this look like? It's this big long thing here. Not too bad. That's all we need. Go ahead and grab that guy, drag it into the scene. Go into our top view. And if you remember, this should line up pretty well if we zero it out and then drag it over. Looks good to me. That's a good top boundary. So let's just make a copy of this by holding down Alt and dragging in the X-axis. Now drag one right down to here. So we have our top and our bottom, which are essentially the same thing. They're the same blueprint. And they'll just allow us to collide with it. But one other thing we need to remember is that in Pong, basically there's goals on either side. So if this ball passes this paddle, there'll be an area over here where it will trigger to add a point to this guy. And if a ball passes this paddle and comes to this side, there'll be a trigger over here to give us a point to this guy. So we're going to set up those triggers, but we already have basically everything we need to do it. So all we got to do is go back to our static mesh, go to our SM boundary, right click on it, and we're going to go ahead and go to asset actions, create blueprint. We're going to create two of these. One is going to be BP, we'll say left goal. Okay, that's all you need. Hit compile. Go back to the SM boundary once again, the static mesh. Right click on it, go to asset actions, create blueprint using this. Create blueprint right goal. Okay, compile, and we're good there. Now if you go to blueprints, you'll see we have a left goal and we have a right goal. We're going to turn these into triggers, that way when the ball collides with them, or, well, rather we'll see how we'll do it, but basically when the ball collides with this left goal, it'll give a point, like I said, and it collides with this with the other side, it'll give a point. We'll drag these into the scene. Go ahead and zero that out. You see it's a little off because we want it to actually be facing the other way. Go ahead and just rotate that 90 degrees. Go up to the top view. And look at it lined up pretty nicely. So when you notice it's like, oh, this is overlapping, that's not good. You're not really going to see that, so you don't have to worry about it too much, but just for the sake of argument, we can just tuck that in a little bit. And if you want to turn off snapping on the scale, I think it's one of these, yeah. This does not have to be absolutely perfect, but if you want to make it line up pretty nice and pretty, you can go ahead and do that. I think something like this should be more than enough. See if we can just get that last little corner out. Okay. It's okay if they overlap a little bit. And then go ahead and grab that guy and we'll just go ahead and get the BP boundary left. Same thing with this guy. We'll rotate it. But in this case, we know the values that we have on here. So let's get this, make this a 90. Like I think it'll just stay at that. It's a 0.69 scale. We'll grab this guy, put a 0.69 scale on him. We'll zero that out. Now we can just slide it right over and it should line up pretty close. Excellent. So now we've got all our boundaries set up for our ball, which is great. So if you look around, if I turn off the center mesh, have a look at that. Nice little boundaries all around the edge. left boundary, which we can check and see if that's the left boundary, right boundary, and then the top and bottom. So with that in mind, we're going to stop it right here, and we have our boundaries all set up. Next video, we're going to set up the actual wall functionality. So I'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment if you can, or if you'd like. And I have fan funding enabled, so if you want to support this channel, please let me know. Thanks a lot.